Emma Thompson settled into seat 3A, grateful for the soft leather after 3 exhausting days of emergency repairs at the Manchester satellite facility. Her clothes were wrinkled and stained with engine grease. Her usually neat hair was pulled back carelessly. She'd barely had time to shower before rushing to the airport. Working as the founder and CEO of 900M Aerospace meant sometimes looking less polished than expected in first class. "Excuse me, miss," a voice interrupted her. "Thoughts?" Flight attendant Rachel stood beside her, wearing a crisp uniform and a forced smile. "May I please see your boarding pass again?" Emma looked up, surprised. She'd already shown it at check-in and at the gate. Still, she reached into her handbag and pulled out the boarding pass. Rachel took it and examined it carefully, frowning. As she read every detail, "This must be some mistake," Rachel said slowly. "Economy class is toward the back of the plane, starting at row 15. Emma felt confused. "No, there's no mistake. I always book first class when traveling on business. My company requires it for long flights." Other passengers started to look over. Some were already taking out their phones, sensing drama. Rachel's voice became louder, attracting even more attention. "Ma'am, you need to gather your belongings and move to economy class. I'm sure someone in back would be happy to trade with you." Emma's cheeks grew warm with embarrassment. She took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Rachel," she read the name tag. "I've checked my boarding pass 3 times. I booked and paid for this seat. I belong here." "Listen, lady," Rachel said, her tone becoming sharp. "I don't have time for this. Move to your proper seat now or I'll call security." A man across the aisle stood up. "Actually, I watched this entire conversation. The lady has been perfectly polite. You're the one creating a disturbance." "Thank you," Emma said quietly to the man. "Mind your own business," Rachel snapped at him. Then she turned back to Emma. "Last warning, economy now." Just then the cockpit door opened. Captain James Wilson stepped out, attracted by the commotion. "What seems to be the problem here?" Rachel turned to him quickly. "This passenger refuses to move to her correct seat in economy." Captain Wilson looked at Emma, then back at Rachel. "Did you verify her ticket?" "Yes, sir." "But look at her. She clearly doesn't belong in first class." "What exactly do you mean by that?" the captain asked, his voice careful but firm. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to see a text from her assistant, Claire. "Don't forget, the $900 million defense contract meeting is confirmed for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Good luck." Emma put her phone away, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Tomorrow she would be presenting her company's revolutionary satellite technology to government officials. Her system could save lives by improving emergency communication networks worldwide. Yet here she was, being questioned about whether she belonged in first class. "I need to see the passenger manifest," Captain Wilson said firmly. He walked to the front desk and returned with papers. After scanning them, he looked at Rachel. "Ms. Thompson is listed for seat 3A, first class window seat. She purchased the ticket 3 days ago." "But sir," Rachel protested, "surely there's been some error in the system." "The only error here seems to be your judgment," the captain said. He turned to Emma. "Miss Thompson, I sincerely apologize for this incident. Please make yourself comfortable." "Rachel, please return to your duties and prepare for departure." Rachel's face turned red. She walked away quickly, avoiding eye contact with the other passengers who had witnessed the exchange. The woman from across the aisle smiled at Emma. "I recorded the whole thing on my phone. Do you want me to send it to you?" "Thank you," Emma replied, "but I think I just want to forget this happened and get home." But as the plane prepared for takeoff, Emma couldn't help thinking about her grandmother, Mary, who had raised her in a small council flat in Birmingham. Mary had cleaned office buildings at night to save money for Emma's education. She had always told Emma to stand tall and proud, no matter what anyone said or thought about her. When Emma started 900M Aerospace 10 years ago, people had doubted her abilities. Banks refused to give her loans. Investors said a woman from Birmingham couldn't understand aerospace engineering. But Emma had proved them wrong. Now her company employed over 500 people and had changed how the world thought about satellite communication. As the plane lifted off the ground, Emma closed her eyes. She felt tired, not just from the long days of work, but from having to constantly Prove she belonged in spaces where others questioned her presence. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she would focus on what truly mattered, securing the contract that could revolutionize emergency response systems and save countless lives. The other passengers gradually returned to their magazines and laptops. The incident became conversation between seatmates, some expressing outrage, others sharing similar stories. Emma kept her eyes closed, trying to find peace before the important day ahead. When the drink service began 20 minutes later, a different flight attendant approached Emma's seat. "Good evening. I'm Sarah. What can I get for you?" "Just water, please," Emma replied softly. "Right away. And again, I'm very sorry about earlier. That was completely unacceptable." Emma managed a small smile. "Thank you. I appreciate that." As Sarah moved down the aisle, Emma opened her laptop to review her presentation one more time. She had to be perfect tomorrow, not because anyone doubted her, but because lives depended on the technology she had developed. This was bigger than any one person's prejudice. This was about changing the world for the better. The end Emma Thompson grew up in flat 12B of Langley Tower, a grey council building in Birmingham. The flat had 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and windows that never quite closed properly, letting in the cold night air. Her mother had left when Emma was just 2 years old, leaving her with her grandmother, Mary Thompson. Mary worked as a cleaner for several office buildings in the city centre, starting her shifts at midnight and returning home just before dawn. Every night, young Emma would wait by the window, watching the streetlights flicker on and off. She could see her grandmother's tired figure walking up the street, her cleaning cart rattling behind her. Mary would always wave and smile no matter how exhausted she felt. Inside their small flat, the two would share a simple dinner, usually bread with butter and jam, while Mary counted the coins she'd earned that day. £20 tonight, Mary would say, separating the coins into piles. 15 for rent, 3 for groceries, 2 for your school books. Emma was only 8 years old, but she understood. They had to be careful with every penny. Still, Mary always found money for Emma's education. When other children in the building played in the streets, Emma studied by lamplight. She read every book she could find, completed every homework assignment perfectly. "You've got brains, child," Mary would say, sitting beside her at the kitchen table. "You're clever enough for university. Don't let anyone tell you different." The years passed quickly. Emma excelled in every subject, especially mathematics and science. At 16, she won a full scholarship to study engineering at Imperial College, London. Mary cried tears of joy when the letter arrived, though she tried to hide them. On Emma's first day at Imperial College, she felt like she'd entered a different world. The buildings were grand, the students carried expensive laptops, and everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. Emma carried her notebooks and pen, wearing her best jacket, bought second-hand from the charity shop. During her first engineering lecture, Professor Henry Davidson looked around the room. His eyes stopped on Emma. "Young lady," he said, pointing at her, "are you certain you're in the right place? Engineering lecture hall." The other students turned to stare. Emma felt her heart pounding, but she remembered Mary's words. "Yes, Professor," she said clearly. "I'm enrolled in mechanical engineering." He grunted. "Just checking." Throughout the term, Emma faced doubt from several professors. They questioned her understanding, assigned her extra work, gave her lower marks than male students for similar answers. But Emma persisted. She studied harder than anyone else, arrived early to every class, and stayed late in the library. 4 years later, Emma graduated at the top of her class. Mary was there, wearing her best Sunday dress, beaming with pride. "I always knew you would," she whispered as they embraced. But graduating was just the beginning. Emma had a dream, to start her own aerospace company. She wanted to create satellite technology that could reach the most remote places on Earth, helping people who lived where help couldn't easily reach. She approached every bank in London. With her business plan tucked under her arm, she visited 23 different institutions. The conversations were always similar. "Aerospace," the bank managers would laugh. "Do you have any idea how much money that requires?" "I do," Emma would reply. "That's why I need a loan." Young lady, this isn't the kind of business for someone like you. Maybe consider something smaller. After 6 months of rejections, Emma finally found one investor willing to listen. Peter Mitchell owned a small engineering firm. He didn't offer much money, but he offered something better, his workshop space and his name for the company. If you fail, I'm out $50,000, Peter said. But if you succeed, you might change the world. Mitchell Aerospace began in a converted garage. Emma worked 18-hour days, sleeping on a fold-out cot in the corner. She designed every component herself, tested every circuit personally. Her first prototype failed, her second prototype failed. Her third prototype worked for 30 seconds before exploding, but Emma kept going. She remembered the nights watching Mary count coins, the professors who doubted her, the bank managers who laughed. Each memory fueled her determination. After 3 years, Emma created something special, a lightweight satellite communication system that could work in extreme weather conditions. It could help rescue workers communicate during earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes when regular networks failed. The first test was during flood relief in Bangladesh. Emma's satellites connected rescue teams across 200 miles of devastated land. They saved hundreds of lives that day. The media called it revolutionary. Within 5 years, Mitchell Aerospace grew from Emma working alone to a company of 500 employees. They developed systems that helped coordinate rescue efforts around the world. Their technology reached places where no communication had existed before. Remote villages, disaster zones, even ships lost at sea. Last year, Grandmother Mary had fallen ill. Emma visited every day, sitting by her bedside in the small Birmingham hospital. "Look what you've done," Mary said weakly, holding Emma's hand. "You've helped so many people." "I learned from the best," Emma replied. Mary's final words stayed with Emma. "Just remember where you came from, child. Remember the council flat, the cold nights, the counting coins, and when you reach the top, help others climb too." Now, sitting in that first-class seat, Emma carried those words with her. Every success felt sweeter knowing how far she'd come. Every challenge felt smaller compared to what she'd already overcome. The company she'd built employed people like her, those who'd been told no but refused to accept it. Mitchell Aerospace had become more than just a business. It was proof that determination could overcome doubt, that hard work could defeat prejudice, and that a girl from a council flat could change the world. The end. By 6 o'clock the next morning, Emma's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text messages filled her screen. Missed calls showed 17 different numbers. She sat up in bed, startled by the chaos. The video the woman had recorded on the plane was everywhere. Someone had posted it on TikTok during the flight. Now it had 2.3 million views. Twitter exploded with the hashtag #JusticeForEmma. People shared stories of their own experiences with discrimination in airports, hotels, and workplaces. "Breaking news," read the BBC headline. "Black Aerospace CEO humiliated on flight." Emma's face appeared on the television screen. The news anchor spoke. Emma Thompson, CEO of Mitchell Aerospace, was publicly questioned about her first-class seat yesterday evening. The video has sparked outrage across social media. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Emma, it's David. Have you seen the news?" David Chen was her business partner and chief technology officer. They had started the company together when no one else believed in them. "I see it, David. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Good Morning Britain wants you on the show tomorrow. Sky News called 3 times. The Guardian wants an interview. David, I have a presentation to prepare. The Ministry of Defense meeting is tomorrow." I know, but this is getting huge. Our company name is everywhere. Should we release a statement? Not yet, let me think." Emma hung up and called her assistant, Claire. "Claire, I need you to field all media calls today. Tell them I'm preparing for the contract meeting. No statements yet." By mid-morning, the airline's headquarters was flooded with calls. Their phone system couldn't handle the volume. Their social media pages filled with angry comments. "I will never fly with you again." "Boycott this racist airline." "Fire Rachel, the flight attendant." Emma gathered her team at Mitchell Aerospace. 23 engineers, programmers, and designers sat around the conference table. They looked worried. "I know what's happening," Emma began, The video is viral. We're in the news. But here's what we're going to do. We focus on our work. We prepare for tomorrow's presentation. The lives that depend on our satellite system matter more than social media. She looked at each face. These people had worked countless hours perfecting their technology. We respond through excellence, she continued. That's always been our way. We don't fight with words, we fight with achievement. Her words steadied the room. They returned to work, running tests, checking calculations, preparing visuals for the presentation. But the media storm continued. By afternoon, Emma received over 200 emails. Many came from people she didn't know. My son saw what happened to you. He says he wants to be an engineer now. Thank you for showing him what's possible. Margaret from Leeds, I'm a pilot. Last month, someone questioned if I belonged in the cockpit. Seeing you stay calm gives me strength. James from London, I'm studying for my A-levels. When teachers doubt me, I'll remember you. Aisha from Manchester, Emma read some aloud to her team during their afternoon break. The room fell quiet. See, she said, this is why we do what we do. Not for publicity, for the kids watching television right now, wondering if they can succeed despite the obstacles. Late in the day, the airline finally responded. Their statement came 6 hours too late. We regret the incident involving Mrs. Thompson. We're investigating, and will take appropriate action. We value all our customers equally. The stock market reacted immediately. The airline's shares dropped 8% within an hour. By closing time, they had fallen 12%. Financial analysts called it the cost of discrimination. Social media users weren't satisfied with the weak response. Boycott them all began trending. People shared screenshots of their cancelled flights. Travel bloggers wrote articles titled, 10 Better Airlines to Fly. That evening, Emma's lawyer, Patricia Williams, called. They want to settle Emma. The airline is offering compensation. They're worried about lawsuits. We'll talk about that later, Emma said. Right now I need to save my voice for tomorrow's presentation. Before bed, Emma opened her laptop one last time. Her inbox showed 847 unread emails. She selected one that caught her eye. Ms. Thompson, I'm 12 years old. I want to be an aerospace engineer too. Can you tell me how to start? My teacher says girls aren't good at math, but I think he's wrong. Sophie from Bristol, Emma, typed a quick reply. Sophie, your teacher is wrong. Start by believing in yourself. That's the first step to anything great. Emma. She closed her laptop and looked at her presentation materials spread across the dining table. Tomorrow was crucial. The Ministry of Defense contract could revolutionize emergency communication systems for the entire country. It could save lives during disasters. Her grandmother Mary's words echoed in her mind. Just remember where you came from. She remembered the council flat, the lamplight, the counting of coins. She remembered professors doubting her, banks refusing her loans. None of that had stopped her. A flight attendant's prejudice wouldn't stop her either. Emma packed her presentation materials carefully. She selected her best suit. Navy blue, professional but powerful. She prepared her notes one final time. The viral video would fade eventually. Twitter hashtags would change. But the work they were doing at 900M Aerospace would last. It would connect remote villages to emergency services. It would help rescue teams save lives. It would show young people watching that they could overcome any obstacle. Tomorrow was what mattered. Tomorrow she would walk into that Ministry of Defense meeting and show them exactly why 900M Aerospace was the only choice. The end. 2 days after the incident, Rachel Johnson sat in a meeting room at the airline's headquarters in London. The disciplinary panel consisted of 3 senior managers. Her hands shook as she placed them on the table. Rachel, the head of HR, began. You've been with us for 8 years. You've received excellent performance reviews. Help us understand. What happened on that flight? Rachel felt her eyes filling with tears. I don't have a good explanation. When I saw her sitting there wearing casual clothes, looking tired, I just assumed... She took a deep breath. I assumed she didn't belong in first class. But you saw her boarding pass, another manager pointed out. I did, but in my mind I thought maybe she'd made a mistake or maybe the system had glitched. I couldn't believe someone who looked like that would be in first class. Rachel wiped her eyes. I've been trained better than this. We all have. I attended the diversity workshop last year. Then why did this happen? Asked the third manager. Honestly? Because deep down I had biases I didn't even know existed. I saw a black woman in first class dressed casually, and my brain immediately jumped to conclusions. There's no excuse. None at all. The panel asked more questions. Rachel answered, truthfully, accepting full responsibility. By the end of the hour, they informed her that termination proceedings had begun. She would be suspended immediately pending the final decision. Meanwhile, Margaret Williams, the airline's CEO, sat in her office high above central London. She'd been watching the stock prices drop all morning. More than that, she'd been reading the thousands of angry emails from customers. Get Emma Thompson on the phone, she told her assistant, and book me a flight to wherever she is. I need to meet her in person. That afternoon, Margaret arrived at Mitchell Aerospace's office in Manchester. Emma met her in the lobby. The CEO looked uncomfortable, carrying an expensive handbag and wearing a suit that cost more than Rachel made in a month. Miss Thompson, thank you for seeing me. Please call me Emma. Come, let's talk in my office. They sat across from each other. Margaret's hands were clasped tightly. I want to apologize personally for what happened. It's unacceptable. We value all our customers equally. Thank you, Emma said simply. We'd like to offer compensation for the distress you experienced. We're prepared to offer a significant sum, plus lifetime first-class upgrades for you and your immediate family. Emma shook her head. I appreciate the gesture, but I don't want money. Margaret looked surprised. Then what can we do? I want systemic change, Emma said firmly. This isn't about punishing Rachel. This is about changing a culture where someone can work for 8 years and still make these assumptions. For the next hour, they discussed solutions. Margaret took notes as Emma spoke about unconscious bias, diversity metrics, and accountability systems. I need to think about this, Margaret said finally, but I promise you, we will make changes. Back at the airline's headquarters, Margaret called an emergency board meeting. She presented Emma's requests and her own research on industry best practices. We can't just offer money and hope this goes away, she told the board. We need to become a different company. Within 1 week, the airline announced sweeping reforms. All 15,000 employees would undergo mandatory unconscious bias training, with refresher courses every 6 months. The training would be designed by diversity experts and would include real scenarios like the one with Emma. New promotion requirements would include proven commitment to diversity and inclusion. Managers would be evaluated on their success in creating diverse teams and addressing discrimination complaints. A completely anonymous customer complaint system was launched. Instead of paper forms that could be ignored, customers could report incidents through a secure online portal. Each complaint would be investigated within 48 hours. The airline adopted a strict zero-tolerance policy. Any confirmed discriminatory behavior would result in immediate termination, regardless of the employee's history or position. These changes won't happen overnight, Margaret announced in a company-wide email, but they will happen. We owe this to our customers and to ourselves. But Emma was already planning something bigger. She called her board of directors to an emergency meeting. I want to start a foundation, she said. The Mitchell Foundation. Its purpose will be to provide business-class travel for young people from underprivileged backgrounds who need to travel for university interviews, job opportunities, or scholarship competitions. Her CFO raised an eyebrow. That's a significant expense, Emma. We can afford it, Emma replied. We just won the Ministry of Defense contract, but more importantly, we have a moral obligation. She thought of her younger self, preparing for her first university interview. She remembered the long train journey to London, the anxiety about looking professional enough, the borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit. If my grandmother had been able to fly to job interviews instead of taking overnight buses, her life might have been different. She might have had more opportunities. She might have worked less backbreaking jobs. The board voted unanimously to approve the foundation. Within a month, they had their first recipient, a 17-year-old from Leeds who needed to fly to Cambridge for a scholarship interview. I can't believe this is real, the teenager said, when Emma called to tell her she'd received free business class tickets. "I was going to take the bus and sleep in the station overnight." "Not anymore," Emma said. "You fly first class now." The airline situation continued to evolve. Rachel's termination was finalized, but with a recommendation for rehiring if she completed diversity counseling and volunteered with anti-discrimination organizations for 6 months. In the employees' break room, new posters appeared. "Everyone belongs here and judge ability, not appearance." Training sessions filled the calendar. Some employees grumbled about the extra requirements, but most welcomed the changes. 3 months after the incident, Margaret Williams flew economy class on her own airline, something she rarely did. She watched flight attendants interact with passengers of all backgrounds. In Manchester, an elderly Indian woman boarded first class. The attendant welcomed her warmly, helping with her luggage without a single question about her ticket. That's how it should be, Margaret thought. That's progress. Emma continued her work at 900M Aerospace, developing communication systems that saved lives. But she also made time for the foundation, personally screening applications and occasionally surprising recipients with phone calls. Her grandmother's words echoed in every decision. "Remember where you came from and help others climb." And 5 years had passed since that uncomfortable flight. Now Emma Thompson stood in the Palace of Westminster, wearing an elegant navy dress suit and her best shoes. The Queen's representative pinned the Order of the British Empire medal to her chest. The medal felt heavy with meaning. "Dame Emma Thompson," the announcer called out, "for services to aerospace engineering and equal opportunity." The audience applauded as Emma shook hands with officials. Her team from 900M Aerospace sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Among them sat David, Chen, Claire, and 25 engineers who had been with her since the beginning. After the ceremony, Emma addressed the crowd. "This honor doesn't belong to me alone. It belongs to every person who refused to be limited by someone else's narrow thinking." Outside Parliament, reporters gathered. One asked, "How has your company grown since that viral incident?" Emma smiled. 900M Aerospace now employs 2,500 people across the UK. We won the Ministry of Defence contract, worth $900 million. Our satellite system helps rescue workers communicate in earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes. Just last month, we connected emergency teams in Turkey within hours of a major earthquake. Another reporter raised her hand. "How have things changed? For diversity in the aerospace industry?" "We've partnered with 50 universities. Our scholarship program has helped over 300 students from underprivileged backgrounds study engineering. 35% of our current engineers are women. 20% come from Black, Asian, and minority backgrounds. We're building the future of aerospace with all of Britain's talent." That evening, Emma attended a conference at the London Convention Centre. The topic was Building Inclusive Workplaces. As she prepared to speak, she noticed something surprising. On the stage, Rachel Johnson, the former flight attendant. Rachel had completed 6 months of diversity counseling and volunteered at community centers teaching cultural sensitivity. The airline had rehired her with a new role, Chief Diversity Training Officer. Now she traveled to airlines worldwide, sharing her story as a cautionary tale and teaching better practices. "Good evening, everyone," Emma began her speech. 5 years ago, I was questioned about sitting in first class. Today, I share this stage with Rachel Johnson, the person involved in that incident. We can all choose growth. We can all choose better. Rachel nodded from her seat. They had met privately. 3 years ago. Rachel had apologized again, eyes full of tears. Emma had forgiven her, understanding that changing hearts and systems was more important than holding grudges. During the conference break, they spoke together for the first time in public. "Thank you for giving me the chance to make amends," Rachel said. "Traveling to different airlines, sharing what I learned, it's the best work I've ever done." "Look at what you've achieved," Emma replied. "The airline's discrimination complaints have dropped significantly. You're part of that change." Emma's phone buzzed with a message from home. It was a video from the Mitchell Foundation's latest scholarship recipient, a 17-year-old named Aisha from Birmingham, the same city where Emma grew up. "I'm on the plane," Aisha said excitedly, showing her business class seat. "I'm flying to Oxford for my interview. I can't believe this is real." Emma showed the video to Rachel. "We've helped 847 young people fly to interviews and opportunities. Many were sleeping in train stations or hitchhiking before." "You turned pain into purpose," Rachel observed. Later that night, Emma visited her grandmother's grave in Birmingham. She placed fresh flowers by the headstone and sat in the damp grass. "We did it, Grandma Mary," she whispered. "900 Aerospace is changing the world. I remember counting those coins by lamplight. Remember how you cleaned offices at night so I could have school books? Look at us now." She thought about the small council flat where they had lived. The building still stood, though renovated now. Some of her former neighbors still lived there. Emma had set up a community center on the ground floor, offering free computer classes and college preparation courses. The next morning, Emma returned to 900 Aerospace headquarters in Manchester. Walking through the halls, she passed engineers of all backgrounds working together. In the cafeteria, she overheard two young African engineers discussing a satellite design problem. One was mentoring the other, just as someone had mentored them. Her assistant Claire handed her the day's schedule. "You have a BBC interview about the Order of the British Empire, then 3 university visits to encourage STEM students, and tonight, board meeting to approve our new scholarship expansion. And the prototype testing. Successful this morning. The new emergency communication system works even in extreme Arctic conditions." Emma smiled. The same technology that once seemed impossible for a girl from a council flat was now saving lives worldwide. Their satellites connected ships lost at sea, guided rescue helicopters through storms, and helped coordinate international disaster relief. At lunch, Emma walked through the employee garden. She remembered her first days here, working alone in a converted garage. Now hundreds of brilliant minds worked together. The company gym buzzed with activity during lunch hour. The on-site childcare facility allowed parents to bring their children to work. Free evening classes helped employees advance their careers. "Dame Emma," called out James, one of their satellite engineers. "The Queen just used our system to make her first satellite call from a remote Scottish castle." Emma grinned. "How did it go?" "Perfect connection. She said our technology could help isolated communities stay connected." That afternoon, Emma visited a local secondary school. Walking into the assembly hall, she saw 500 teenagers waiting. Many were from immigrant families. Some looked uncertain about their futures. "5 years ago," Emma began, "someone doubted I belonged in first class. They saw my skin color and my casual clothes and made assumptions. But here's what I want you to remember. Their doubts don't define your destiny." She spoke about growth, about turning setbacks into strength. She talked about her grandmother Mary, about the late night studying, about being told no 100 times before hearing yes once. Your background doesn't limit your future. It strengthens it. The challenges you face today will become the wisdom you share tomorrow. After her speech, students lined up with questions. A Somali boy asked, "How did you keep going when people doubted you?" "I remembered who I was doing it for," Emma answered. "Not just myself, but my grandmother, my community, and kids like you who might see what I achieved and think, if she can do it, maybe I can too." Driving home that evening, Emma reflected on the journey. The airline had become a model for diversity training. Their policies influenced the entire travel industry. Discrimination complaints across British Airlines had dropped by 78%. More importantly, she had built something lasting. 900 Aerospace hadn't just created jobs, it had created hope. Their foundation had opened doors for hundreds of young people. Their technology saved lives in disasters. Their inclusive workplace culture attracted talent from everywhere. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Climate change threatened coastal communities who needed their communication systems. New space exploration projects waited for development. The next generation of engineers would push boundaries she couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, Emma felt proud. She had accomplished her grandmother's final wish: help others climb. She hadn't just built satellites, she had built ladders, connecting talented young people to opportunities that once seemed out of reach. She had turned a moment of prejudice into a movement for change. And she had proven that when one person rises, They can lift an entire industry with them. Emma smiled as she thought of Mary's words from long ago. You're clever enough for anything, child. Don't let anyone tell you different. She had shown the world exactly what was possible. The end.